So we're doing brows today. I did a reels recently of my brows, but that's like a short 30-second little clip, and that's not actually how long it takes. So I asked you guys if you wanted to see like a long form version of it, and you said yes, so we're gonna do that today. I feel like I've used most of the brands that make a brow pin, and this is by far my favorite because it has a pencil on the other end of it, and also because the little tip is really fine, and so I can get those brow hairs really nice. And I know that like the laminated brow, soap brows look is really in right now, but the main reason I don't do it is because of the way that I do my base. I apply my base first and I apply it through my brows. I have psoriasis and it tends to form around the center of my forehead and in my brow hairs. So in order to do that brow look, the laminated brow, soap brows look successfully, in my opinion, it's number one, it's kind of wet product. And number two, you're really pressing it onto the skin and brushing it through. Well, if you already have foundation and stuff there and powder or whatever, even if it's minimal product, it is going to mess that up. So a lot of times people will do the lamination part first and then do the rest of their face, but that just doesn't work for me because I need to actually put foundation through my brows to cover my psoriasis. So that's why I don't do it. Hopefully this won't be too long, but I am gonna keep most of the clips in here just so you can see how long it actually takes me. These are the two darkest colors from Urban Decay. This is the Dark Drapes, which used to be their darkest color, and which is why I started to try other brands in the beginning, because I wanted to try something darker. But they recently came out with a darker color, so all I have to use are these guys now. I don't have to use anything else anymore, which is really exciting. This color is in Blackout. So what I like to do, I like to use both, is go and draw with the pencil for the Dark Drapes, fill in most of it with the Dark Drapes, and then go back in with the Blackout and do some fine tuning. This is really about building a brow from scratch. If you don't have, if you have hair and you're just filling in little areas, this tutorial is really not for you. So I'm going in with the pencil part, and I start at the bottom of my brow, and I have a lot of space in here that I want to fill because I don't actually want the, sperm brow that I have naturally. I don't want it to be a really thin arched line. So I do need to kind of start in the front of the brow and draw the line a little bit more straight than what my natural arch is. And all of that area there that's hollow is gonna be filled in later. So I'm just starting, that part of the brow and then going to the tail end. I personally start with this brow because my brows don't sit even on my face. So I start with this one in order to know where I need to cut this one off. Because if I start with this one, it's gonna end up being, it starts around here, and do you see how low that is compared to this one? And then I'll have to make this one really low, and then it's just a whole like low sort of situation. So now that I have that one drawn in a little bit, I'm starting this one a little bit more even to that, and so I'm cutting off these bottom hairs. You can't really see it that much. Yeah, there you go. I'm cutting off those bottom hairs. They don't exist on this side. So this arch is a little bit higher. So when I do my kind of straight across sort of thing, it's gonna be an even bigger gap than it was on this side because the arch here is higher, so there's more space that I need to fill in there. And I'm using the pencil pretty lightly on my skin. I don't want like a hard line. Okay, so naturally my brows sit kind of far apart, and so I already started it a little bit on this side, but I like to bring them a little bit more into, towards the bridge of my nose. I don't do any measuring out or whatever. You can do that, that's all great, but I just eyeball it, and that's about as far as I want them in. Okay, so now that I have my arch relatively even on the bottom, and all of this is gonna get like fine-tuned at the end, but now I start on the top. At the top, I don't take a solid line right at the front of my brow. I start a little bit further back, and I just draw right on top of where my natural brows grow. I don't go too far above because my brows are so naturally skinny that if I make them too wide, it'll start to look way too fake. So I try to give myself a little bit more fullness, but not too much. This brow is naturally more sharper point here than this one. This one's a little bit more curved down. So for here, I have to create a little bit more of a point. And on this side, I have to soften it a little bit. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I can get this pretty decent, pretty even because I'm looking at myself in a camera. I'm using my mirror to see what I'm doing up close, but to judge like how even they look, it's because I'm using my phone as the camera. So I know that not everyone like films themselves, but filming yourself really does help for you to see how other people see what's going on, or just to see what you're doing. Sometimes you can't tell what is even and what is not when you're looking in a mirror. So if that is a concern for you, I would just practice in your phone. Now I'm taking the pin side of Dark Drapes, and this has a really fine, sharp tip to it, which is what I like. And I like to use my pinky to anchor against my nose or whatever part of my face. And I just start flicking kind of straight up in the air. I'm like barely touching my skin. And so you don't want to press hard. You just want to use the fine tip of the brush. And that's another reason why I like this pin, because I've found that other pins, they don't supply the right amount of ink. So unless you are like actually holding it in this way, which this way I have like no control. I need to be able to anchor my pinky somewhere to have control. So that's why I like doing it this way. And as long as I store it upside down at night, when I get ready to go use it, it's pretty filled up with liquid in the brush tip without being overwhelmingly like gushy. And I can get the brow hairs that I want with relative ease. In the front of the brow, I do those straight up flicks. When I get to about here, I change direction and I start flicking in this direction, which is the natural direction in which my hair grows in my brows. I'm not doing these brow strokes too close together because I am gonna go back in and fill with a darker color, so I don't want it to get too overcrowded. And I'm using that bottom line that I drew as my guideline so that I know how far down that I should go. As far as the top line though, depending on what I'm doing, if I want it extra bushy, then I will actually extend the flicks outside of that line. And that just gives it like a less sharp kind of situation. Trying to figure out if I should cut out the next brow or not, because I'm doing the same thing, but it's like, do you guys want to see how long the whole process takes? I'll decide later whether I keep this part in or not. If the pin feels like it's starting to run out, the tip of this cap has like a spring in it. So you just kind of pump it up back and forth. Either the cap has a spring in it or this has a spring in it. I don't know how the mechanism works, but if you pump it like this, it will pump fluid into the tip of the brush, which some of the other pins that I've tried don't have. So that's another good feature of this brush too that I really like. Now there are still some sparse areas, but that's just because I'm going to be using two different colors. If I was just using one, I would continue filling in. So now I'm going to move on to blackout. This color, I don't know if it's off black or totally black. It doesn't seem super dark, but it's dark enough to give me like more dimension in the brow and fill in those leftover spaces that I have without having to do the whole brow in this dark shade so that the brow doesn't look too heavy. Now, if you do like the laminated brow, soap brow sort of thing, your hairs will be laying flat and you will just draw kind of in between those hairs. Now this is where I do a little bit of fine tuning. I'll either do that with micellar water and a brush, or I'll do it with concealer and a brush. Today I'm going to use concealer just so you can see what that looks like. This is the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer in the color Almond, and I'm just taking this flat brush from Delium Tools. This is the 714, and I'm just kind of making sure that there's very little product on my brow. And so what I'm going to be doing is making sure that this bottom part is straight. So this is pretty straight. I could probably clean that up there, but this has like a little divot in it, and so I'm gonna want to get that straighter. But I'm gonna do this side first just because it is the side, like I said, that starts higher. So I'm gonna need this one to match up with this one. So I like to do this one first so I know how to do this one. And I like to use a concealer color that is not really much lighter than my skin tone. Honestly, I would prefer for it to be my skin tone, but this is the color that I have. That way you don't have to worry about blending it in. I don't like a lighter color there. So now that I see how that arch is at the bottom, I'm gonna try to mimic that on this side. So we'll start at the front of the brow, and I'm gonna cut off this part of the pencil or pen that went a little too low. I feel like I got the arch underneath pretty good, pretty even. Sometimes I have to actually correct this area a lot to make them match up, but today's not so bad, so I'm gonna just try not to mess it up. There's this little area right here that's sticking up too far. I typically don't like to do anything to the top. I try to get that correct because if I'm doing the little bushy hairs, I don't want a sharp line. But it looks like I have made a little boo-boo in this area. And just so you know, because I don't have natural brow hairs in most of these areas, when I hit certain lights, it's gonna look like there's not hair there because it's glaring against skin and not natural hair. So it's just gonna have that look to it. It is what it is. But when I don't have light glaring on it, you can see that it is fully filled in. So that's the whole routine. I hope that you guys liked it. I hope it wasn't too long, and I'll see you guys in the next one.